Welcome, everybody, to the NLC Division 2 Week 7, Day 1. My name is Samuel Nishalai Tapgood, and I'm joined by none other than the mighty Adrian, otherwise known as Jamada. Our first time casting together in literally 6 months. I've missed you, buddy.
It's been too long, you know. Circumstances have just meant that we've not been able to cast together for a very, very long time. And I always love it because for some reason we get on the mic together and teams just lose their absolute marbles. They start picking some really weird stuff. So
Genuinely, I don't think I've actually had a day where I've had a normal day of games with you. Like, they've all been weird. Every single one of
them. Without fail, it always ends up being weird. And it's actually, you know, something I was discussing the last time that I was here, last week, Div 2. You always get weird stuff. Whether it's, you know, one team, two teams, or, you know, most of the league, you're in that kind of limbo zone where you get loads of meta stuff, all right, loads of teams that are playing meta, and then you always get the teams that just don't really care about the meta. They play their own style. And they make
Absolutely. Yep, they do, and that will make things pretty interesting as well. I don't know whether we've got it available to us right now, but if we get the schedule up, Reed, it'd be great to have a look at the standings and the schedule before we head into our games today. Brilliant, thank you so much. And what do you know, our production's already on the board. You love to hear it. I've got a slight disconnection issue though, so I'm hoping Jamada can see the standings.
Okay, yeah, sure. Right, I'll cover the standings.
I have got a great freeze frame of our faces right now, not the standings.
All right, so as you can see, Monster are at the top 11-1, been very, very dominant. Nativz holding on to sole control of second place at 8-4. Domino, Flung, and Lucent Esports all tied at third place and 7-5. Light Side and Rate 6-6 tied for that 6th place spot. Then Verdant London United as well, 3-9, and AAB Esport, unfortunately, 2-10 at the very bottom of the table. Nothing too drastic changed from last week, but of course, Nativz sort of dropping further behind on Monster in terms of that first place race. Closer and closer to that clump for sort of that third place, fourth place, fifth place. Finishing whilst Monster continue to hold on to sole possession for first place for what feels like an eternity now.
Well, they have, and like, of course, the last time I was here, it was Nativz who were the team that everyone wanted to beat, and they've kind of fallen back down those standings a little bit, but they're still kind of up there as one of the more dangerous teams. And I'm doing this as a bit of a tangent because, of course, our first game of the day is going to be Nativz versus Lucent, which is likely to be bluntly a banger. We were having this conversation off air that we think both teams are pretty good, but they've both had their inconsistencies, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, but they've had their inconsistencies in different ways, right? I think for Nativz, it's been more about, you know, I don't want to sort of start this narrative of finding their groove consistently because they were very, very consistent for a very long time. But just as of late, it seems like they are dropping games where maybe they shouldn't be. And I've said it once, I'll say it again as well. I feel like Nativz are truly their biggest enemy because their understanding of the game seems very, very firm and very, very, you know, it just seems a lot better than most teams, if not every team. I think I would even say maybe better than Munster, despite the standings might say otherwise. Whereas for Lucent, yeah, it's like this storming and norming phase, right? They go on massive loss streaks, they go on massive win streaks. Right now, they're on a roll, but Nativz, of course, are the kind of team that will definitely put an end to that roll.
They could definitely have the book stop here with them. And I love how you threw that kind of just like subtle hot take in there, kind of just glossed over it. Oh, yeah, they might just be the best team in the league. That Monster team, yeah, nothing.
No, it's
on
more
Nativz.
like, I wouldn't even say like they're the best team, but I think they might understand the game the best, which I think is two slightly different things.
You know, that's a really interesting discussion. I think at some point, maybe once we head into game, if we've got a little bit of downtime, I'd love to pick your brain about that a little bit better. But I see the angle. The ceiling for this team is just so high, and we know it. Yeah. Lucent, on the other hand, I guess my impression has been they are a team that has often gone for the stat check and said, look, let's hands check you, and we'll come out better. And I appreciate the confidence. I appreciate the attempt on it. And it's generally worked against teams who are a little bit lower down the standings. They've got some pretty good head-to-head records against those teams below them in the standings, but it's a lot more inconsistent, again, that word again, against those teams a bit higher up, against the likes of Nativz and Monster, where you go for a hands check versus teams like that, and they'll go, great, we'll take that, and we'll win anyway. So it's not been quite as effective necessarily, or at least not as consistent. And that does mean that for me, for Lucent here, as they're trying to break away from some of the teams they're tied with, I need them to say, okay, if we're going to play this style, can you do it against some of the best teams in the league? And Nativz certainly will count as one of those.
Yeah, and I mean, as simple as this, you look at the standings. Natives and Monster are the only other two teams above Lucent right now because they are tied at 7 and 5. So, like we said, it's one of those things where they've been a little lackluster against teams which, in the moment, have been above them, and it's only really been the teams below them that they've consistently beaten. So, this is a very important matchup, not just for Lucent and of course Natives, but just the grander scheme of the standings too. Because if Natives lose this game, this also gives the opportunity for the teams later on in the day that are tied at 7 and 5 to also leapfrog up to that joint second place, and Monster just sit there rubbing their hands as they probably, albeit not necessarily guaranteed, continue to grow their lead in first place.
Already got themselves a healthy gap between themselves and second place, but they can continue to grow that. Of course, the only team right now in double-digit wins, up at 11 right now, and a couple interesting bans. First time I'm seeing a Renata B1 ban out in pro play. Saw 3 games of that in Div 1 yesterday, but still kind of... The jury's still out on how good this champion is and when and where you can play it. They just want to get rid of it right now, alongside Castrulan's ever-present Mundo.
Yeah, Mundo, champion Castrulan, as you've highlighted, very much loves one of the few players, if not the only player that's brought it out.
I think he's the only one I remember, but I've not been paying.
At the very least, he's been a very he's been a Mundo enjoyer. At the very least, and for Renata, yeah, like you say, had a bit of a heyday yesterday. Quite a few games in Div 1. I guess, like you say, the jury is still out. I would say definitely leaning towards strong, but it's a bit hard to sort of gauge where she is. I think this is the kind of meta where she can thrive, where it's like front to back. Diving kind of plays into that when you play front to back sometimes, so turning that around with the Renata can definitely work. And speaking of dive, Hecarim taken off the table, Zeri as well, very mobile, which we see very commonly. And this is the part where I'd say Lucent probably look to remove away none of the AD carries. They probably want to keep Thresh up, and they'd probably look towards maybe another jungler, maybe the likes of Zinzao if they really want to remove away something. Yeah, Zinzao, Jarvan. Definitely a jungler. But actually, they say, okay, they want to throw down the Jinx Gauntlet, which says, all right, Natives, do you want to pick up the Aphelios? We know it's something Joppa loves. If it's not, Fuyu is a massive majority of it. And Natives, they play the bluff and they say, okay, we're just going to pick up the Zinzao.
The gauntlet is thrown and Natives decides to honestly take up the challenge. Say, okay, I'm not going to first pick that first. We'll first pick the Zinzao, which we prefer. And of course, Joppa has got a few other picks in there. You saw him hover, the Samira hover there. Maybe that will come out a little later on. I'd certainly love to see an Inferno trigger or two pulled in this game. Response looking like potentially a Trundle, which has been a pretty good answer into Jin Zhao, because you try and trade with him at level 2, 3 when Jin Zhao's normally strong, you lose. It's just not fun for Jin Zhao.
Yeah, it's one of those matchups where it's like, I kind of look at it as almost like the Olaf matchup for Trundle, where you walk into into Trundle, and Trundle just eats you. There's nothing else to say about it. He absolutely murders you. And it just doesn't get any better at level 6, because at least as far as dueling is concerned, the ultimate doesn't really add anything for Snille on the side of the Zinzao, because all it really does is that extra bit of damage. The knockback, you're not getting any resistances, nothing like that. Trundle just says, okay, I don't really care. You've not done anything to me. It's more about, trying to create space for yourself against more range champions. The Zinzao ultimate, it's not so much for dueling as Lucent. They also round out that R1, R2 with the Karma pick. So a lot of utility in that opening rotation, and Natives, for now, go for the early Gangplank rotation as well, which, I mean, at this point, it says to me, okay, we're probably going to be playing strong side bot, but do we want to, give up our mid lane pick here now and just say, we'll try and see what Lucent end up putting in the bottom side, because that Karma can be so flexible, or do we want to try and pick up a priority AD in this rotation as well? Looks like the answer will just end up being that Aphelios.
Because of course that does mean that Aphelios wasn't picked up by Lucent, because they threw down the gauntlet. It was the Jin Zhao that came down. They didn't go for it. They went for the Trundle and the Karma instead, and that does mean the Aphelios ends up on native side anyway, which suggests to me that Lucent potentially have an answer or something they want to pick into it. The Misfortune would be an interesting choice, as would any of these AD carries, but it's just hovers right now, so I'm going to wait to see what's locked in. I'd love a Draven game, but I suspect we might just be getting something pretty standard here, as an Ezreal Karma, a possibility here unless that Karma gets flexed.
Yeah, I would suspect the Ezreal Karma. A lot of poke can come in. It makes Aphelios' laning very, very miserable. So what I'd like to see in that case, if they are going to be putting the Karma bot, probably a Nautilus ban, maybe a Leona. I think you're okay with Thresh being there, but at the same time, the playmaking possibilities with Zinzao Thresh also very irritating. I think the Nautilus makes the most sense, just because it's one of the few supports that can kind of negate Ezreal's mobility and safety, because Death Charge follows you no matter where you go. And I would expect the Thresh follow-up just for the setup and the safety that it provides for the Aphelios. I think those are the two most telegraph bans you would get out of Lucent here. And as for Nativz, a little more open-ended. I think you maybe look to pick off Castrulan's picks that could give, the Gangplank a bit of a hard time. Something like the Urgot, maybe the likes of the Gnar as well from Castrulan if you're looking at something a little more standard. I think especially now in the Hullbreaker Gnar, it does make, laning for GP a little bit miserable. It's still very much playable as it has been, but as soon as you hit that Hullbreaker spike for Gnar, it just becomes a little too difficult. So maybe those are the two range pickups that they look to remove away from Castrulan on the top side.
There's an Gnar call out of that. Actually, it appears to be a missed ban, which, oh no, sorry, it's not the Leona ban. I just looked at the wrong side of the screen there, which was making me very stressed. There we go. It was just that additional engage ban. Of course, Ryze is actually the final ban, but of course, Ryze and Ahri, according to Fudge over in NA, two of V2 Premier picks for mid lane. It was the Ahri that was hovered, but instead we're looking at a Sona hover. Again, refuse to comment on it. I've seen some weird enchanter picks down in Div 2, but this would be a bold choice right now, especially considering it would be a blind pick effectively.
Yeah, no, Fuyu, always the hoverer of
yes!
And there you go, it happens.
Yes!
Without fail, every single time me and you, we get on the mic, it's not even been, we couldn't even go one draft about a bit of an out there pick, and it's going to be the Yurik. And I'll talk on this because it's actually a matchup I have a little bit of insight on.
Go forth. I'm going to drink my tea, and you can spill the tea while you're doing it.
So sure, I mean, I think it's better to wait once we're in game as he sips his tea immediately. We'll look towards Nativz. I think Thresh, now that Leona's off the table, probably just makes the most sense. They actually lock it.
The shots keep coming. I love it.
Oh my god, I love these guys. Which honestly, I think could be a little bit risky because if Lucent want to,
oh my days,
it's not Sona mid. It's not Sona mid. I'm not buying into that hype. I'm not buying into that hype. I'm not buying into that hype.
Zilean would make a lot of sense. Double enchant. We've seen a lot of Zilean around about. The priorities going up. Instead, it'll be towards a Zoe. We'll take a little bit of hysteria back, but that is GP and Zoe plus Sona. That's a lot of zone control with the sentinel turrets and the rest as well. Good front to back. Good ways to keep your Aphelios alive and enchanted, but still a bit of an unusual comp. What are Lucent going to round theirs out with? Because they've got some things to decide on here.
Yeah, I think for Lucent, for Syntax, a ranged pick, even if it's something that's sort of medium range like the Victor, I think you just want to try and stay outside of Zoe and Gangplank's operational ranges to the best of your ability. And I think Victor probably fits Syntax's MO the most here. Of course, you could look for some really, really out there picks, but I think as far as Mera is concerned and as far as, hitting that level 6-ish sort of mark, typically that's where you get access to the upgraded death ray in terms of the stacks available to you. Sometimes it can come a little bit later. Being able to then match the priority and the dueling power.
Kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at these drafts top down, obviously there's some very interesting things to talk about. Sona probably, I think, is on your tongue more than the likes of the Yurik. Yurik.
No, it's Yurik.
No, it's Yurik. All right.
I've got to remember the ability names of this champion. I've not cast him in like a year and a half. I remember Last Rites. I remember the Maiden of the Mists. It's all the other abilities I remember nothing about yet, so I've got to quickly remember all of those.
Quick look up on
Google.
Quick Google on the Yurik abilities. But yeah. Well, we know
as we know
the abilities. Sam's very much a perfectionist with the names, unfortunately. So, yeah. Draft top down. We'll talk about those real quick.
Yes.
Top side matchup. It's definitely it's a little more Yurik one-sided. I think for Gangplank, it's playable, but you have to really abuse level 1. That from my experience in that matchup, it seems like if you don't abuse level 1, level 2, and you don't know how to lane that one, pretty much to perfection, then Yurik's laning phase starts to get a little bit oppressive. You hit the Sheen spike, cool, but if you get in range to parlay, the issue is it's a stationary skill where you set yourself up to then be caged and Yurik can trade on you. It's a bit awkward, the trading pattern. So at least from the experience that I've had and the very brief times that I have seen Yurik versus Gangplanks, it does come out every now and again. You have to play that level 1 to 2 out spectacularly, and then you have to kind of just hope for jungle interaction eventually. But when you pick Gangplank, it's a weak side pick typically in pro play. It can be played as a strong side, but I expect that Castrulan is probably going to have the run of the mill up in the top side in terms of what he gets to do here.
Especially if both of these junglers are planning to play towards bot side, right? Actually, I think in an isolated 1v1, Yorik's incredibly happy. That's great. And then you've still got the Ezreal Karma to have shove in bot side. I think that Yurik is potentially a stroke of genius here from Lucent, especially considering you've got the counter pick and jungle as well with the Trundle. There's some good stuff going on. And considering Hullbreaker still very strong, you know, even if
Yep.
there have been some nerfs that have come through
But
and were likely to come through again. I'm quite remember. Was it 12.4 when they got nerfed, or 12.5? I forget
it was
when.
12
It
point,
was 12.
I'm pretty sure it's 12.4, but the issue was it was for range champions. So Hullbreaker
That's
didn't
what it
really get hit for
was.
the melee champs.
That's right. There we
So you know, it affects the likes of pretty much just Graves. Obviously not in mini, but he gets access to the full stats once he's in mega, so not too fussed about it per se. So I imagine Castrulan will be rushing towards that. Maybe deviates into a Sheen just to get the on-hit damage and then the full Hullbreaker, or maybe just going for something like the Triforce, the Divine Sunderer, straight up before picking up the Hullbreaker.
Yeah,
Definitely a very viable second item, simply because Yurik over the years has traditionally very much been that Sheen champion, as it looks like that's the Arclight skin. So
oh, very pretty.
it is a very pretty skin, actually. I think it's one of his more underrated, nicer ones. Albeit we don't get to see much Yurik, so...
No, I think, honestly, since Yurik has been updated, I think all of his skins have actually been pretty nice. The Pentakill skins are obviously great. The Arclight one, I think, also pretty strong. And he's got some beautiful effects. He's just, sadly, not that popular, even if he's actually got a very cool story. Yurik, of course, great lore available to him. Just League's lore has been a bit of a sore point over the last few years for League of Legends. It's been a little bit removed from the game itself, but Yopper and Clocks might also be in a sore point here as they take an empowered Mantra Q there, which just chunked them out just a little bit of the level 1. Ezreal Karma doing what Ezreal Karma likes to do.
Yeah, exactly. And probably why this Sonar Pick has come in as a bit of a response to the Karma. Of course, so much sustain can come out eventually from this Sonar lane. It does just take a little while, but expect priority to firmly be in Lucent's favor. And that should be the case for a majority of this lane, if not all of it, as level 2 is hit, and you'll see a lot of this. So I think for Nativz, look to maybe punish it sooner rather than later. But still late, early pathing suggests top side is the MO, as Lindorf didn't get a look at the level 1 to level 2, but full priority here in the top side, and Castrulan has to hold this wave.
Yeah, it does, of course, with the barrels and, of course, a little bit of that sort of semi-ranged nature of Gangplank with the Qs and the rest of it. But you can sort of get some early shoves before things like the ghouls and stuff start to be available a bit more readily for the Yorick. So right now, being shoved in, that's kind of the way perhaps which should be expected. And nothing super crazy happened as yet. Both junglers, interestingly, actually pathing more towards the top side than the bot side, which wasn't necessarily what I was expecting. But maybe that sort of curveball of the Yorick has changed some of those pathing intentions.
Yeah, and actually on the 2v2, I think in the earliest of stages, Lucent should be fine. I think that sort of Sheen pickup as, oh, that's an early smite.
Oh, does get to come in and steal it. That's unfortunate.
Just one of those things where the shield obviously gets broken by the smite, and then the smite damage goes onto the crab. As Jump on Clocks, they really want this fight.
It's got the exhaust down as well. Fuyu gonna have to burn the heal and step away, but of course he's got Arcane Shift, so now the turnaround can start coming through. Yopper got rooted, needs to be a bit afraid here. He's got Severum available, but he's got to flash out and heal in turn. Of course, actually, that will be Clocks who burns that one, and the summoner advantage going the way of Lucent as Yopper and Clocks overstepping just a little bit to try and get the kill onto the AD carry of Lucent.
Yeah, if Fantasy makes his way down here, whilst there might not necessarily be a lot of innate setup between Zimba and Fuyu, Pillar will make ganks quite easy, and now still late. It's an audacious gank, and it'll be an audacious charge in with both these targets having flash, but he's looking for it.
He's definitely going to try and make it happen. It's be a 3v2, but a very early dive it is. Fuyu, Arcane Shift away, but no man left. Flashing now. Try and get out, and Zimba rooted under the tower. But first blood goes towards Fuyu. It's too aggressive. It's too Nativz, bluntly. Sometimes they make it a little bit too hard on themselves.
Yeah, that was definitely... That was an out there attempt, I have to say. Still late. He's charging up the 3-talent strike to try and get the knock-up immediately. But the follow-up just wasn't there from Drop on Clocks. Whether it's, you know, the wave position, we'll get a better look on a replay, I'm sure. But the parts, they were moving. They just weren't moving in unison, unfortunately. And Lucent, they capitalize. I'm not actually even sure how Joppa ended up tanking tower. And I think the creeps died.
Stepped beyond to help because creeps must have died, I assume. But wait, he's back. It could make this happen. They've got the ward in the bush as well. Zimba has got the chains, so gets the root, and Fuyu actually sticks around for a last auto as well. That was a bit bold, but gets away with it. It will get the additional summoner, but that's all that goes home with that. First blood onto your Ezreal. The wave's shoved out, so there's not even losing minions to tower. Lucent will take that one to the bank. And speaking of it, here's a replay of the dive itself.
Yeah, so the wave is all here. Maybe Yoppa's just not quite out of tower range. I mean, it looked like from the POV we had that he was just about there. Wow, that's so unfortunate, I think. But definitely inside the tower range. Just had to step up maybe a couple more units to the north.
Yeah, I think it was literally just the fact that Clocks couldn't take another tower shot, so Yopper couldn't get far enough outside of tower range in time. Miscalculated by half a second, if that.
Yeah, but those are the kind of margins that will make you fail a tower dive, unfortunately, in the earliest stages as well. Clocks on the Sonar. Sonar's not exactly the most known champion for tanking towers.
No, not at level 3. Yeah.
No, certainly not. But if there was an attempt, it fails. Let's see how they bounce back and what Lucent do to leverage that potential lead they have as level 6 hit by Castrulan, and this is where Yurik starts to get kind of irritating. But on the flip side as well, Lundorf did manage to pick up a Sheen on his first base with a longsword and boots as well. So a couple of additional stats that are definitely going to help him out in the trading, and obviously sidestepping things like the cage and the sort of missed slow that can come in and make trades really, really obnoxious. And actually, one thing I don't know, though I imagine it will work like this, if Lundorf cues these small little ghouls, I imagine he gets parlay gold from it as well. It's triple barrel slowdown.
Snille. Wow, it's going to be around here, and the barrel comes through. It'll be, of course, the audacious charge forward, flash forward to follow the flash of Castrulan. He's just dead to rights. The Maiden is going to be around for about a moment before she disappears back to Mist, and Nativz on the board. First gank doesn't work out, but Snille will make it work in the top side instead.
Yeah, top side, Castrulan, Yurik, not the most mobile of champions in the world without the flash. Dead to rights, like you call out. Fantasy was just a camp behind, I think, on Snille to make that one work. Doesn't look like Snille skipped out on anything too hard. It's just that he obviously spent so much time on the bottom side that is down the camps right now. Castrulan just waited a couple more seconds for Fantasy to back that one up. Maybe it's a 2v2 they can look to take.
Yeah. You'll also note, actually, that Lucent just pinged out as well the red side of Nativz jungle, saying, look, we think that the red buff is still up, so that's probably what he skipped to be here. We're maybe thinking whether there was a way to maybe contest for that, but just not an option with waves and jungle resets are at. So just maybe a point to say, yeah, he's likely going to be around the bot side, and well, you know, he's got level 6, and he might be looking to come in for a gank. He just will be spotted out if he does so. There he is. Cannon Barrage will slow Zimba down, actually, of course, without a flash. Could be in a lot of trouble. Clock's taking some damage. Audacious charge, but that is the renewal to buy some space. Still going to be rooted down. Fuyu exhausted, but Arcane shifting forwards. Crescendum and Inferno makes things difficult. Relay comes down. Flash for the Paddle Star will secure the kill onto the other bot laner of Lucent. Bubble comes through as well to root in place. The Trundle taken down to about 1/3 HP, and Lucent thought they had the counter, but still go down regardless.
Yeah, that was great play from Nativz, honestly, and kind of surprised they don't just fall back onto the dragon hit. I think it would have been a pretty free takedown, but maybe just saying we want a better use of our time. As it seems like Joppa's just actually going to walk back to the bottom side, so they're not even going for any kind of re-lane assignment, and maybe Lucent now would use this window to pick it up themselves, as it seems will be the case. So they, at least in the extended run of play, they will trade out. Pick up this dragon, but Nativz, they're still the one with all the kills. Pick up all the gold as well. 1,500 gold lead.
Yeah, got some fairly decent gold lead right there. And of course, I've got a replay coming up. Because actually, honestly, for a moment here, I thought Lucent and Fuyu with that aggressive arcane shift forward might have been able to turn this around, but just not quite enough damage.
Yeah, not quite enough damage, but not only that, look at Snille, because he actually crescent guards 2 members back. That could have brought a little more damage and provided a little bit more sooner had they not been knocked back. Snille kind of saving that engagement potentially for Nativz of that ultimate. Because imagine Syntax and Fantasy, they both flash forward, full combo from Syntax onto those 2 members, Joppa and Clocks. They probably just insta-die, even at these early stages. Especially if Fantasy can also get a chomp or 2 in. But really, pretty much matching the timing as well without having to use teleport. Definitely helped out. Nativz just had the numbers there first. Plain and simple.
Yeah, they did, and make the most of it, and that's a nice recovery from that slightly scuffed early dive. Now, they've managed to get now Snille, you know, the flash on that return gank bot, gets the kill on the 3rd return down there. Of course, he got the kill topside onto Castrulan's Yorick, so in fact he's there again, just side lane ganking the entire game apparently. Gonna get a big chunk with the Dark Procession. Locks the Xin Zhao away. Yes, I've learned those ability names, by the way. And the eulogy coming out, that's what the ultimate's actually called. It's not what you think it is. The Maiden of the Mist is like Daisy, but it's the name of the ability is
not the same.
It's yes, eulogy or something like that. I've forgotten the name already. Hang on, here we go. It's Eulogy of the Isles. That's what it is. Eulogy of the Isles. Because of course he's the Shepherd of Souls out in the Shadow Isles, or at least thus the lore goes. But right now that counter pick, kind of not in the best of space. Down a fairly hefty amount of CS this early on into the game. It's nearing 30 odd, 35 odd right now. Played very well by Lundorf right now on this Gangplank.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lundorf, one of the couple of Gangplank players in this league as well, definitely piloting the matchup. As somebody that probably understands it quite well, played out at level 1 to 2, as kind of spoken about going into the game. You just don't really want to trade at all with Yurik. You want to just try and take, max range Qs, barrel chains, ensure that they can't lane. But this is a really great move from Lucent here, and warded out by Nativz. So they know that it was going to be on its way. Fantasy will eat up the sentry turret and some of the poke that comes with it. But plays still going over to Lucent on the top side. Snidley picked up that Herald. This is what this map trade's all about. And there's pressure in Castellan off that tower. As you can see, Lundorf picking up plays. Joppa a little bit aggressive. Remember,
there's actually some summoners down here. There's Exhaust, there's Flash, but I don't think it's going to be enough Flash for the job. Cannon Barrage comes through, but it's a 21 gun salute to mourn the passing of the AD carry. Nice little dive there from Lucent. The pressure down bot side has been pretty extreme as Chaos Storm summoned onto Relay and mid. Does chunk him out pretty heavily as well, but he's, I think, picked up a rocket belt there. So, of course, you have
I think it's
Zoe.
rocket belt. Yeah, because there's the other symbol which used to be I actually forget the item name. Talisman of the Ascension, I think.
Oh, Talisman of Ascension. Yeah, I remember. Like that was the thing is, I've learned all the new items and thus forgotten all the old items.
The old ones, yeah.
Unless they're the really, really old ones. Like I remember Deathfire Grasp, for example.
Yeah.
Will of the Ancients, that kind of deal. But like, like Spirit of the Elder Lizards. But like, there's the kind of ones in between, which I didn't build that often anyway. Like I don't remember what you were called.
Yeah, no, 100%. That is one of them, because it's a support item. If you're not playing support, you probably just didn't purchase it.
I mean, I used to play Thresh a bit back before you could choose your roles. Or was you so you just had to get what you were given. I used to play Thresh, Janna, Zyra as were my support choices, and I was okay Thresh for being as mechanically challenged as I am.
Wow.
Look, I'm under no illusions about how good I am at this game, namely not. So
all right.
There's a reason I commentate rather than play.
Oh my god, that's that Me Too initialize as a...
Right.
Zimba, Iclock kind of looking into each other. But Snidley will now be on a ward, and this dragon still a couple seconds until that one's up. Snidley going to be poked as he tries to find a way out of that position. Whether he wants it or not is a different conversation, as Lundorf's actually been locked in underneath tower.
Yeah, that's a bit nasty, but has got a barrel chain to prevent too much of a follow-up, and the ghouls will go running after him, but not for too much longer. As Snidley in a spot of bother with that gravity field coming down, a lot of damage coming through in general. Fancy has had to pop the subjugate to get out of danger and will not be taken down. But some aggressive trading coming up, because there's an Infernal Dragon coming up in about 10 seconds, and both teams want to make sure that's an option, as topside with the Demolished procs could maybe really looking for a first turret up here, as the Herald was taken early, might go down in mid lane, a Syntax as well, chunked out. Series of a great deal of aggression, but unfortunately plates fell just before that Herald connected.
I don't think I've seen a Herald hit a tower any sooner than
that is so unfortunate.
Yeah. Unlucky, but tower will be picked up on the top side. Like you said, the Demolished proc, once the resists of having one plate drop off, it's a bit of a freebie there for Lundorf. As actually, Reed, I'd like to take a look at the gold, because Lundorf, he's perfect farming, and not only that, he's playing Gangplank. Almost
double. Oh my days.
1,000 short.
What is that?
Yeah, so I mean, you have to remember, not only that, it seems like Lundorf, even though he's been having a lot of pressure on... What was he going to miss?
Gangplank. He's here signing checks. He's just sitting here signing checks and forcing Castrol to take loans out in his life.
Yeah,
all those funerals he's dealing with costing him house and home right now.
Yeah, exactly. But what you have to remember is Castrol obviously spawns a lot of those ghouls where he can get a lot of the extra parlay gold. And it seems like despite the amount of pressure that Lundorf has been putting on Castrol, he's been finding a really nice balance of being able to farm the Silver Serpents, because I think he had about 700. Which obviously you have to remember, Silver Serpent, the conversion is just 1-to-1. Like,
that's the real value. That's the real value.
Yeah, so not only does he have 700 Silver Serpents, which at this point in the game, by the way, absolutely bonkers. Typically, this is where you'd be, if you're farming properly, this is roughly where you'd be hitting your first.
What is the cost on upgrades these days?
Like, 500 each.
500 each. Actually, he's on his way to a second upgrade already at 15 minutes, what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's pretty nuts. He just picked up the triple crit cloak as well, which of course was a Huni special way back in lock-in when he was doing disgusting things with Infinity Edge second on the champion. So you can see that Lundorf really feeling himself this game, and can't blame him with that perfect CS, 10 CS a minute, got those Silver Serpents you're talking about. This could well be a Gangplank carry game for all that he's kind of supposedly weak side.
Yeah, no, I mean, given how the game's actually played out, it's more or less been, you know, Gangplank strong side, which, you know, as a Gangplank enjoyer, I like to see it. Gangplank has a much stronger laning phase than I think players give it credit for, so it can be played towards. And I think it has been successfully, and Lundorf been given the space to play a pick that he is very, very proficient at, despite the, what I'd call adverse circumstances of playing into a Yorick in pro play. It's just not a pick you see often.
And like I hesitate to call this necessarily a done deal for the length. Of course, once Yorick hits 2 items, he becomes a lot more obnoxious to deal with and will have a lot of pressure. But Syntax, I'm not going to get a chance to talk about anything like that. It's going to flash out from the 3 members of Nativz as Relay taken pretty low in trade there by the Chaos Storm that came out in penance for daring to attack the Victor in his own jungle. But he's forced to flash, forced to back away from mid lane, and that's probably going to be a second turret going down to Nativz now in pretty short order.
Yeah. Nativz pick up this mid lane tier 1, and of course the added value of the Victor being in the game, that tier 1 being down, is absolutely fantastic for Nativz, because now they can catch the wave super high up, and it's always that kind of, especially, I mean, there's also the Karma and the Ezreal if Victor ever went to a side lane. But
I just realized we could have had a great lore match. I'm sorry to take you away from this.
No,
I know that's a really
okay.
good memory.
What's the
I'll say, like, look, there was a pentakill Sona choice here from Clogs. And if Castrul had gone towards the pentakill Yorick, we could have had, like, the new Viego, because the new Viego's kind of like, it's supposed to be Pentacle's rival or whatever his name is. Like, was like, Dissonant Viego, whatever it is. It's a name for the skin. Anyway, the point being, like, we could have had a really cool, like, band breakup story going on. Instead, we've just got the Arclight, which is a cool skin, but it's meant we've not got the lore match that we could have had, which is really sad.
Yeah, it's always sad.
Where are my really cheesy hair metal narratives? Come on, I need, like, what was it, like, Spinal Tap? You ever watched that movie? I basically need that, but in, like, the League of Legends version.
Okay, I've not watched Spinal Tap.
Okay, well that's just okay. It's a great movie. You should go and watch it. It's a classic for a reason.
Oh, okay. I'll look into it.
It's wonderfully bad. It's probably the way to do it. There's a sort of like 12-inch inflatable Stonehenge that comes out at some point, which is both really sad and very funny.
Huh. Right,
and there will be no more context given at this point.
No, all right, sure. As Nativz, they look to pick up their 3rd tower of the game, moving tower to tower, honestly, top to pot, giving Relay the space he needs to clear this one out. And you can see Syntax giving a lot of respect to ensure that there's no dive, no extra kill given over. But they will pressure in the mid lane, but they're going to get collapsed on. Herald gets dropped. This tower should fall at that HP threshold, but will they get jumped on?
They're going to have to step forward, but he's had this happen to him a few times. The renewal then comes out. There's True Shot Barrage internal alongside a teleport. Tower goes down, and can Nativz disengage? They're going to try and get out. It was a decent crescendo to buy some space, but Clock's down. He flashed on, not quite enough damage. And Nativz survive what was a very dangerous situation for them.
Yeah, they do. They really get out of that one, despite being the one looking for the picks. Fantasy almost dies.
Oh, Fantasy nearly goes down a Relay, who found another good bubble. The sort of secondary engage from this Zoe this game has been pretty damn disgusting. Only the 1 kill to Relay's name from the bot side play earlier on, but I feel like every time I see them, there's been a lot of bubbles chunking people out to sub 30% HP, but it does give Castrulian some free time to finally recoup some of his losses with the Hull Breaker complete, and the Maiden drawing all that additional HP from the turret. She can do. It makes things a bit difficult as Snille kills off Fuyu in the mid lane. Yeah, was not expecting that.
Seems like Fuyu got a little bit too overconfident. Whether he was defending the mid lane or not, it's hard to say. But yeah, Flash
oh no, not again. It's a good pillar to try and buy some space. The wet floor sign comes out, and he just decides, you know, you can't walk through here too easily, and does manage to walk out of danger. But I'm appreciating the accuracy on these Sleepy Trouble bubbles, if nothing else.
Yeah, no, they've been absolutely fantastic, and it's honestly been the Nativz mid laner that's not been picked on too much, not really been focused a lot, as that's how it happens. It's a bubble from downtown. Actually goes short on the paddle star, and the Flash over the wall. Plus the arcade shift. Unfortunately, just doesn't give Fuyu the time to survive, as I think an auto attack actually followed him from Stinlace. It's one of those things where you can't always flash melee auto attacks if they're a certain way through their animation.
Once there's a point of no return, shall we say. Unfortunately, that was the point of no return, and Fuyu does die. Has, however, completed 2 items. Dirk in inventory as well. The Muramana has transformed. So this Ezreal pretty happily online. It is that old school talking fight. 2-item Ezreal, it's here. But unfortunately, on the other side, I'm looking at a 2-item Gangplank with triple crit cloak for the 100% crit. He is very dangerous right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. If a barrel chain hits onto Fuyu, Syntax, or Zimba,
it's done.
Hold no reservations. They will probably lose about 80% of their HP. Especially if Lindorf decides to go into something like the Collector here. I think it's actually not too bad if you're looking at murdering specifically the squishies, and Fuyu doesn't really want to opt into a Frozen Heart, which in this game, I mean, he could, but I think a lot of the time it's not what you see the Ezreals go into too often these days. It's more still about the damage items. It's not so much about, you know, the utility of having things like a crown into that Frozen Heart where you get so much resistances. It's more about that black damage.
Chatting with Goldbook, chatting with Nightmare, they were agreeing that it's not so much a crown anymore. It's things like the Prowler's Claw, interestingly, apparently the highest value item for the Ezreals. We were kind of chatting about a little bit there as tangentially. And
you debate that, actually.
Exactly. It is a big debate. It's the reason I'm kind of being a little bit temperamental about it. The Dark Procession will buy some space, but of course the wall gets broken down pretty quickly. And I can start to see, I feel like there's probably an angle here for something like an LDR, honestly, as well, if you want to keep laning against this Yorick and just say, yeah, okay, well, you built up all this armor and it means Jackal to my items. Collector, I can also see. What would you rather? Because I know you called out the Collector earlier, but I can see the angle for an LDR here as well.
Yeah, 100%. So if he's going to continue to side lane like he is, then yeah, LDR, I think if you're looking to actually blow up Castrulan and just have a lot more damage, right? Tabby's Hullbreaker resistances is going to be annoying to get through. Fantasy as well. Looks like it's going to be going Rando in second. So if you're looking to, you know, remove the front line, absolutely you can do that. But you have to remember, the barrels have that flat percent armor. I don't think it's penetration, it's more ignore, which I guess I think it's slightly different. Yeah.
Fuyu is just caught out and dead. Never mind talking about Gangplank barrels, it'll just be crescendos, bringing this game to a screeching halt as Lucent taken out there, and it'll be Nativz now thinking about going towards a Baron with the enemy AD carry dead. I don't even know whether Lucent have the opportunity to come and contest this properly. They'll come and try, but Castrulan's going to split push and try not to come in if he can help it.
Yeah, the issue is Fuyu is so much of their poke at this moment in the game. Syntax can obviously provide a lot of AoE, but just isn't being afforded the opportunity to get close to the pit. Fantasy's still on the back. Has flash, so can make it in.
You could definitely look to make it in. They're going to try and turn it around. There's the Cannon Barrage as well, and they don't quite make it happen. Baron's still leashed down to about 3k. Adsy's still here. He's got flash, and I feel like, I wonder whether the Natives have overstepped. The Tree Shot Barrage chunks out a lot of people as well, and they need to try and get over the walls. The flash in. It won't work. He's in. Look at the guy. Gets there in time. Down to 40 HP at the end of it all. But still Natives to secure the Baron. All the while, the Castrulan onto inhibitor turrets. That is 3 turret. He has crushed through here. That will be the trade for the Baron. I think Lucent will say worth.
Yeah, Lucent won't be too...
Oh, wait, and the Fuyu fell again. Okay, that's a bit unfortunate.
I mean, at this point, Fuyu is probably worth 170 gold for that 4th death. So, you know, swings and roundabouts.
I feel like both AD carries have had some moments here. It's like, everyone's been trying to murder them all game long.
Yeah, it's been an unfortunate sequence of play. We will dub it for Fuyu, being caught out time and time again over the last couple of minutes. But yeah, Castrulan, Hullbreaker value on the bottom side, man. It's so impressive. How quickly you can tear through those towers. Nativz, I think, not going to be too happy about the fact that they ended up trading that many towers for the Baron, but they got the Baron, and now Zimba forced to flash.
Another one of those battles. It's 100 to 0.
Oh, it's nasty, but it makes sense.
Oh boy. I feel the Hercules songs are coming through. It's like, it's literally 0 to 0. Just invert the lyrics. That is horrific stuff.
Yeah, Shallow Flame, Ludens, plus the Sork Pen Boots, man. So much spike damage. Just look at that again.
Oh, Syntax. Oh no. Look at the time. It's clocks. He's been paying attention, and like clockwork, these kills just keep coming through. Nativz have decided enough is enough. It's time to shove in to really make something work of it. Of course, Castrulan's still not here, still playing PvE. We'll get another turret at the top side, but all the while, his base is falling apart. It's 20 seconds, at least, on Syntax and Fuyu. They could look for at least 2 inhibitors here, maybe more.
Yeah, they couldn't even go for the end. I mean, the carries are dead for 15 seconds. They can maybe hit on one Nexus tower. I mean, look how much damage this Zoe's dealing, man. It's so obnoxious. And if a barrel chain hits, I just saw 1.3k on a crit. These squishies will get absolutely removed.
They're going to keep going through, so much damage coming through. She's gone again. Straight back up, so we'll go straight back down. Yorick is on their team, so at least they got someone to sort out the funeral care. But all the while, Lucent falls back onto the base. Nativz are taking them apart. The barrels are so damn explosive. 3-item gangplank decimates the health bars with the help of the Zoe. And now with the Nexus Bear, they will put their foot down and end this game.
End this game, secure themselves second place, moving into Wednesday's set of games. Of course, now no other 7 and 5 team can catch up to them for the rest of the day. But for Lucent, a bit of a spanking, to be honest with you. That was Nativz playing really well. Top to bottom, with the exception of that first, dive. Definitely a little bit over eager to make a play happen. But
yeah.
I would say great adaptation to say, okay, we couldn't make this bottom side work. Now this is probably when Ezreal and Karma take over this lane 2v2. The sustain can probably hold out on its own between the Sun and the Aphelios. Let's play to the top side. And I mean, it paid off dividends because the focus was then shifted, on Lucent Center towards the bottom side because they wanted to play towards that because the top side was being played into. And then it just meant that Ryle on the Zoe was just ignored, left alone, allowed to farm. And eventually it just came to a point where Bubble into Paddle Star equaled deaths for Zimba, for Fuyu. And it was just great play from the solo laners in particular. And again, great adaptation after that bottom side failed from Nativz.
Congratulations to Nativz, who are continuing to try and seal themselves into top 2 here in Division 2. That's a pretty good way to start doing it, taking down Lucent in pretty decisive mid-game fashion. We're going to cut to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have some interviews for you, so don't go anywhere. Time to get some thoughts from those players, eh?